Every NordicTrack treadmill looks the same in the ad. Big screen, smooth belt, a trainer yelling at you from a mountain in Iceland. But the motor size, the incline range, and the belt length change enormously from the bottom of this lineup to the top. And picking the wrong one means you outgrow your treadmill in about 4 months. So we're ranking 6 actual NordicTrack treadmills, worst to best, based on what they can really do. Product 6. Next up, the NordicTrack T Series 6.5 SI. This is essentially the T Series 5's sibling with one meaningful upgrade: a 10-inch interactive touchscreen instead of a plain LCD panel, which means you can actually stream iFit's studio classes and global workouts instead of just watching your stats scroll by. It keeps the same folding space-saver design with easy lift assist, so it tucks away just as easily, and it carries the same 300-pound weight capacity as the model below it. The catch is that NordicTrack didn't upgrade the parts that actually determine performance. You're still working with a motor in the same 2.6 continuous horsepower range, and speed and incline are still capped at 10 miles per hour and 10% respectively, using the same one-touch controls. The belt itself measures 20 by 50 inches, which is a compact running surface built more for walking and light jogging than for anyone putting in serious mileage. In other words, you're paying more here almost entirely for the screen, not for extra power or a bigger deck. That's not necessarily a bad trade if the screen is what you actually want. If the appeal of NordicTrack for you is specifically the interactive iFit experience, the trainers, the scenic routes, the guided classes, then the 6.5 SI makes that content genuinely more usable and more motivating than trying to follow along on your phone propped on a shelf. But if you're comparing purely on athletic capability, walking speed, and incline range, you're not actually getting more machine than the T Series 5 below it. Think of this one as the touchscreen upgrade, not the performance upgrade, and buy accordingly. Product 5 now at number 5, the NordicTrack T Series 10, and this is where the T Series lineup starts to feel like a genuinely serious machine. You get a 10-inch touchscreen that tilts for a better viewing angle, a full 0 to 12 mile/hour speed range, and a 0 to 12% incline, all running on a 20 by 60-inch belt, which is a full-length running surface rather than the compact decks lower on this list. NordicTrack designed this one to replace their older EXP10i, and it sits just a notch below the entry point of the Commercial series in terms of size and performance. A quick flag here, because this model effectively took over for a discontinued line, you may see conflicting model names and part numbers referencing the EXP10i floating around in search results and parts listings. Make sure whatever you're buying is specifically labeled T Series 10 to avoid ending up with outdated inventory or the wrong replacement parts down the road. Performance-wise, this is a genuine step forward. The 12 mile/hour top speed opens the door to real interval and sprint work that the lower T Series models simply can't touch, and the full 60-inch belt length means taller runners and longer strides finally have room to move. It's still not carrying a commercial-grade motor, so if you're logging serious weekly mileage or training for something like a half marathon, you'll eventually want to look higher on this list. But for someone who runs regularly, wants real incline training, and doesn't need decline capability, the T Series 10 is the strongest all-around value in the entire T Series family. Product 4, halfway through the list now, and this is where things get genuinely interesting, because we're moving into commercial-grade motors, decline training, and touchscreens big enough to actually replace a TV during your warm-up. Stick around, because the next few picks include a treadmill that hits a 14 mile/hour top speed, and one that inclines to a borderline absurd 40%. Number 4 is the NordicTrack Commercial 1250. This is where NordicTrack's commercial line begins, and it earns that label. The current version runs a 3.6 continuous horsepower motor on a full 22 by 60-inch belt, paired with a 10-inch touchscreen that tilts for better viewing, run-flex cushioning for impact absorption, and a 12% incline to 3% decline range, giving you actual downhill training that none of the T Series models offer. Here's an important flag, though. There's an older Amazon listing for this same model name that describes a smaller 3.5 continuous horsepower motor and a narrower 20-inch belt, which appears to reflect an earlier hardware generation sold under the identical Commercial 1250 name. That's a real risk on a listing like this, so before you buy, check the specific product page for belt width and motor size, rather than assuming every Commercial 1250 listing describes the same machine. Assuming you land on the current generation unit, this is genuinely the sweet spot for a lot of buyers. you're getting commercial tier construction, a full-size belt, and true decline training, all without stepping up to the significantly pricier 1750. If your budget realistically caps out before flagship money and you still want a treadmill that can handle serious weekly running, this is where I'd point you, as long as you verify the exact listing you're purchasing. Product number 3 is the treadmill most reviewers point to as NordicTrack's best all-around option, the Commercial 1750. It runs a 4.25 continuous horsepower motor across the same full 22 by 60 inch belt as the 1250, but adds a larger 14-inch touchscreen that tilts and pivots, a wider incline and decline range stretching from -3% up to 15%, and dual auto-breeze fans that automatically adjust airflow based on how hard you're working. One thing worth flagging honestly, some third-party retailers list this same model with a 16-inch screen rather than 14 inches, which points to a generational difference in what's shipping under the Commercial 1750 name, depending on when and where it was manufactured. It's not a deal-breaker, but if screen size specifically matters to you, check the product photos and specs on the exact listing before you commit. What makes the 1750 stand out isn't any single spec, it's that nothing about it is a compromise. The motor is strong enough for serious distance running, the incline and decline range is wide enough for genuine hill and downhill simulation, and the belt is long enough that taller runners aren't cramped at a full sprint. It sits at a price point below the flagship Commercial 2450, but above the 1250, and for most people training seriously without needing a 14-mile-per-hour top speed, this is going to be more treadmill than they'll ever fully use. If you want one machine that does everything well without chasing the absolute top of NordicTrack's lineup, the Commercial 1750 is the one most people should actually buy. Product 2. Coming in at number 2, the NordicTrack Commercial 2450, and this is the fastest treadmill on our entire list. It's capable of hitting a 14-mile-per-hour top speed, which NordicTrack markets as fast enough to support a sub-2-hour marathon pace if you could sustain it, though I'll flag that specific framing as the manufacturer's own marketing language rather than an independently tested claim. It pairs that speed with a 24-inch touchscreen that tilts and pivots, RunFlex cushioning built specifically for runners, and an incline and decline range from 12% down to -3%. There's a real spec conflict worth flagging here too. One Amazon listing for this model describes a 4.0 continuous horsepower motor, while other sources describe the Commercial 2450 as running 4.25 continuous horsepower. That's likely a difference between hardware generations sold under the same model name, similar to what we saw with the 1250 and 1750. So again, check the listing you're actually buying rather than assuming a fixed number. On top of that, we found a buyer review referencing an older 2019 dated version of this treadmill, where the tablet holder and heart rate chest strap, items normally included, were missing from their specific order, which points to inconsistent bundled accessories across different sellers and years. None of that changes what the 2450 is capable of on paper. If your training genuinely involves interval work at real running speeds, this is the only treadmill on this list built to keep up with you at 14 miles per hour. But if your actual pace realistically tops out in the 8 to 10 mile per hour range, you're paying for headroom you'll never use, and the Commercial 1750 will serve you just as well for considerably less. Product 1. At number 1, we're into NordicTrack's incline trainer category with the Commercial X22i. This isn't really a treadmill built for flat running, it's built around one standout feature, an incline and decline range running from -6% all the way up to 40%. Powered by a 4.0 continuous horsepower motor on a full 22 by 60 inch belt. The 22-inch touchscreen tilts and pivots, and the whole machine is engineered to let you essentially hike or climb indoors rather than just walk on a flat surface. Here's a flag that matters for anyone shopping this specific model. Multiple review sources report that the X22i has been discontinued and replaced in NordicTrack's current lineup by the newer X24. I want to be clear, that's a reported claim from outside sources, not something I've independently confirmed as fact. But it is still listed and available on Amazon as of this research. If you're buying it, it's worth doing your own quick check that you're getting current stock and not old inventory that's been sitting in a warehouse. Setting that aside, the actual training experience here is unlike anything lower on this list. A 40% incline turns a treadmill session into something closer to stair climbing or steep trail hiking, and that kind of intensity burns calories and builds leg strength in a completely different way than flat running ever could. If incline training, hill simulation, or hiking prep is specifically what you're after, this is a genuinely excellent machine, potentially at a lower price than its possible successor, as long as you're comfortable with the discontinuation question and confirm you're getting fresh stock. So here's how this actually breaks down by what you need. If you're just building a walking habit and want the cheapest real entry point, go with the T Series 5. If you want commercial-grade construction with real decline training on a reasonable budget, the Commercial 1250 is your sweet spot. If you want one treadmill that does absolutely everything well without chasing flagship pricing, the Commercial 1750 is the one most people should land on. If your training genuinely demands high-speed interval work, the Commercial 2450 is built for that. And if incline and hill training is the whole point for you, the X22i gets you there on Amazon today, while the X24 is the better machine overall if you're willing to buy elsewhere. Every link, including notes on which listings match which generation, is right below in the description. Check current pricing there before you decide, since it moves. And if this kind of honest, spec-by-spec breakdown is useful to you, subscribe for the next one.